Welcome once again. This is lesson 2 of our web designing course. In this lesson, we're going to look at the components of websites. The objectives are: after this lesson, the learner will be able to know the component of a website. We'll get to know HTML, CSS, and then JavaScript. We will download and install Visual Studio Code as our text editor. And then we will install HTML extensions as well. Now, what is HTML? HTML simply means hypertext markup language. To it is the language of the internet. Hypertext nature of our language allows users to move from one page to another. So take for instance Facebook. For instance, when you're on the home page, you have a link that takes you to the profile page, and when you go to the profile page, you have a link that takes you to your pages page. Your pages. That is the hypertext nature of HTML. Now you must know that every website is built with HTML. In fact, HTML is a core concept of a website. That is why I said it is a language of the internet. You can build a website with absolutely HTML codes. The markup nature are extra features that come with the language. These are called the attributes. So we have split the language into two. We have the hypertext part and then the markup part. The hypertext we know is from moving from one page to the other, and then the markup side is also extra features that comes with it. That is the attribute that allows the language to behave in a way or to show different features. We'll get to know this pretty soon when we start coding it. Now, as I said, HTML is the language of the internet, and that every website is written in HTML. It forms the skeletal system of website. So before any website can come to being, it starts with HTML. And I said that you can build a website with only HTML code. Now, before we can write an HTML code, we need editors, text editors. And these text editors will allow us to write HTML code. There are a lot of text editors available, but we're only going to use one of them. So some of the text editors available, we have Visual Studio Code from Microsoft, we have Sublime Text, we have Atom, we have Notepad++, we have Carrot Editor for Chrome. Those who use Chromebooks, you can use Carrot Editor. It's also a powerful text editor available. And then we have a lot more. So you have Visual Studio, you have Sublime Text, you have Atom, you have Notepad++, you have Carrot, and then we have etc. Yeah, there are a lot of them. All right, there are a lot of them. Etc. is actually not a name of a text editor. There are a lot of them. But for this course, we are going to use Visual Studio Code. You can feel free to use any text editor of your choice, but to follow this tutorial keenly, I want all of us to use Visual Studio Code. Now, how can we download Visual Studio Code? To help us download Visual Studio Code, we will download Visual Studio Code from the official website, that is www.code.visualstudio.com. On this website, we can have access to the text editor, which is a free open source software. You don't pay anything for downloading it. You can just know your operating system, either Mac or Windows. You can just download Visual Studio and install. Now, Visual Studio has features that makes it possible to understand different types of programming languages. So it understands HTML, it understands other languages, Python, other Java, and etc. But to make this work, we have an ability that is already built in in Visual Studio Code that we call the Integrated Development Environment, that is the IDE. Now the IDE allows the visual or the text editor to understand different types of language. To get this IDE or empower this IDE, we will install extension, okay, of the language that we want to use. So if it is a Java, Java that we want to use, we will install the Java extension. If it is HTML, we will install HTML extension. This will power and add more features to the text editor to make it easier for us to write our code. Now let's look at some VS Code features. Now when we install the HTML5 extension, and then let me also add that we have different types of different versions of HTML. The versions we are going to use is what? HTML5. All right. So when we install the HTML5 extension, we'll be able to write important features like shortcuts, and then it will be interpreted for us. Now to do this, all the extensions are built into Visual Studio Code. Actually gives us the opportunity to get our extensions easily by going through to the extensions panel, which is on the Visual Studio Code. So when we go to, there's a section called the extensions panel on Visual Studio that will look pretty soon. When we go there, we have access to all the extensions that we would like to have. So the extensions will help us execute codes and add easy functionalities such as snippet and shortcut. All right. So Visual Studio Code supports all the major operating systems, as I said, Windows and then Mac. But you can also feel free to use your favorite text editor. So now let's install Visual Studio Code. Now we will go to the official website of Visual Studio Code, that is code.visualstudio.com. This is what you should see when you visit the website. If you are on Windows, you can see that we have download for Windows here, which is a stable build. All right. If you're on other platforms, you can click on the drop down here to select whether Mac or Linux is also here. We have other downloads. You can also actually use Visual Studio on the web by going to open on web here and then to open it for you. So here we want it on our PC. So if you are using Mac, make sure you download the stable build for Mac. If you are using Windows, you download the Windows version. By default, I'm using Windows, so the Windows build has been selected for me. I will just click on this and then download Visual Studio Code. All right. So go to the download and then we'll come back to go through the installation. Okay, so now I have Visual Studio Code downloaded in my folder. You can see this is the Visual Studio Code icon right here. We are now ready to install our Visual Studio text editor on our machine, and this will allow us to write our HTML code. Now to do that, we'll just either you double click or you right click and then click on open. This will start the installation for us, and I want us to follow this carefully because there are certain things that I'm going to add up. If you don't take notice of it, you may not be able to follow the rest of the courses because I'm going to use certain procedures to open folders and other things that you need to know. So we will accept the agreement, go on next. Now here there are about 5 buttons here that we need to. So we have additional icon, that is create a desktop icon. If you want to create a desktop icon, we will click on that. We must make sure that we check on add open with code action to Windows Explorer file. So you must make sure that all these things are checked. All right, all of them must be checked. All of them must be checked. Right, you can check all of them before you can continue. Okay, make sure all of them are checked. Then you press on next. install. I already have Visual Studio installed on my machine, so I can just create. But if you don't, you can just leave it to install for you. Okay, you can just go through the installation until it gets to finish, and then you can just click on finish to start Visual Studio Code. Okay, so let's see as Visual Studio gets installed on our machine. Okay, so as it is installing, let's take notice of this. Now, in this project, I want you to create a folder. All right, I want you to create a folder which will contain all our files, all the projects we will do, all the learnings we will do, day 1, day 2, in that order. We're going to create a file that will contain all of them. So first, you create a project folder for this course, and then in that course you can add your progress. If it is day 1, whatever you learn in day 1, you create a folder for it. Whatever you learn in day 2, you can do it like that, or you can just have one big folder for all of them, and then you can continue doing that. So Visual Studio is done installing. We will now launch. We click on finish to open our VS Code. So just click on finish, and then it will open for us. So you can just have your main folder and then create subfolders for it. Okay, I already have, as I told you, I already have some code already running, so I'm just going to open VS Code fresh, so let me do this quickly. I already have some code running, and so I want to go to this. Okay, so let me close this one. Do I have it? Yes. So if this is the first time you're opening VS Code, this is actually what you should see. All right. So I told you about HTML extension. Now we want to empower our Visual Studio Code to be able to do extra things, shortcuts and snippets. So we go to the extensions panel. So count here, we have the extensions panel right here. All right, so when we click on it, it will open up our extension. This is built in Visual Studio Code. All right, so it has opened the extensions area for us, and with this we can just type the name of the extension. The extension you are looking for is what? HTML5 HTML5 extension. So let's type just HTML and see if it will appear. If you have a strong network, it should appear. So HTML5 snippet or HTML extension, they will just come, and then you will install it. This is going to empower your Visual Studio Code, that is the text editor, to become an IDE which will understand your HTML syntax and give you opportunity for other snippets. All right, so just do this to install. I have few errors. Network is not actually good here, but okay, I have it. So HTML5 extension pack, this is what I'm talking about. HTML5 extension pack. All right, make sure you install. So you see I have it installed, so it says disable or uninstall. I have it installed. It's going to install HTML snippet, HTML boilerplate, EJS snippet, tag inserter, quick start, picture element. Everything here will be installed. All right, so there are about 8 of them. So you install HTML extension pack, and then you are good to go. All right, so that is it. So in our next video we will start actually writing some HTML code that is going to be our first website. So stay tuned for the next video. Thank you for watching.